Merry Christmas Eve to those who do celebrate the holiday. Now, today I am doing an episode of Creature Madness. This one was technically due last week, but because I was a little late on this, I decided to push it back a little bit to release this on Christmas Eve. Now, if you don't already know, I'm Gus from Askewed Reviews, and this is Creature Madness. Now, this was a creation by my friend Matthew over at Horror Madness, who decided to invite a few of his friends to come join him in a group that all watches the same creature feature film each week, and then we each do our own review for that film. Now, aside from myself and Matthew, the other members of this club are Amariah, Ryan, Karen, Ashley, Bambi, and Jen. And speaking of Jen, it was her turn to choose the creature feature film. And she chose the 2010 film Rare Exports: A Christmas Tale, directed and co-written by Jelmari Helander. Now, if you have been a faithful fan of Askewed Reviews, you might be going, hey, wait a minute, Gus, you've reviewed this movie before. I did. In fact, it was a Cinema Society Saturday suggestion that I had about a year ago. So I am doing this one again, though, because this is Creature Madness, and I do things just a little bit differently this time around. Now, in case you haven't seen this film, let me tell you a little bit more about it to see if it's something that would interest you in adding this to your Christmas watch list. Now, as a quick heads up, most of the movie, maybe about like 85% of it, is in Finnish, and it does have subtitles. But I will say this, as a person who's not the biggest fan of subtitles, there's enough going on with the story that it didn't really bother me or cause an issue. So I still do recommend checking it out whether or not you like subtitles. So the film takes place in the Finnish Laplands, where we meet our main character, Pitari, who is a young boy. Now, Pitari and his friend Yuso are checking in on something that's happening in their local area. There just so happens to be a British research team that is excavating some big mountain that's near where these boys are living. The reason for it, or at least what seems to be the reason, is Santa Claus might have been buried here. So, to get to him, this team is using dynamite and mining and everything else that causes a lot of issues for the locals here. You see, Pitari's father, Rano, and a few of his other friends work as reindeer hunters. And because of these explosions and everything, it's been very scarce to find them and has even caused wolves and other predators to then just attack them and cause almost none of these animals to be available to be hunted. Now, in the days leading up to Christmas, Rauno has made a trap to hopefully catch one or a few of these wolves. But instead, he ends up catching an old man. But this isn't just a regular old man. As we begin to understand or believe, this may in fact be Santa Claus. Now, this is definitely not just the regular Santa Claus, as apparently this creature of sorts is definitely bloodthirsty and may be out to just get children. Now, as Rauno, Pitari, and a few of the other locals are trying to figure out what to do with this individual, something else starts to happen. Most of the other children in town are just missing. For whatever reason, they are gone, along with some few other odds and ends that don't really make much sense. So, can these Laplanders end up figuring out what's actually happening and hopefully save the children in time? So, I will say Rare Exports is definitely an entertaining movie. I am glad I gave it a rewatch as well because the first time that I watched it, I liked it, but maybe I didn't appreciate it as much because it's definitely a lot more amusing the second time around. Another reason that I actually ended up appreciating this movie more is by now knowing who the director and one of the main actors of this film are. You see, the director is Jalmari Helander, who is the same guy who did the Sisu movies. And speaking of those movies, the guy who plays Rano in this movie is Jorma Tamila, who does play the main character of Atami in those films. I don't know specifically if Rare Exports fits into horror comedy, but there are some funny moments, and especially near the end of the movie, there's even a level of ridiculousness that this does get to. So for me on my scale, I'm actually going to stay with the same rating that I gave it in my Cinema Society Saturday review of being a 3 out of 5. But I will say with this rewatch, it's close to being a 4 out of 5. Like, that's how much more I appreciated it this time around. If you want to check this one out for yourselves, it's currently streaming for free on Tubi. Now, as a spoiler warning, I'm about to go into the section of Creature Madness where I go more in depth about the creatures that appear in the film. So if you don't want anything ruined, go watch this first and then come back to my video. So if you're still here, let's talk about those creatures. First off, obviously, this one who is originally thought to be Santa is actually just one of his elves. Elves are apparently naked old men. I don't know why, but sure. Now, these are not just humans, though. They do seem to have some amount of superior strength. I mean, some of them rip the heads off of people. They also are very bitey. They definitely try to bite people and may, in fact, really hurt children if they get a hold of them. We don't really see what happens with that because they do end up getting stopped before it, but it's probably horrifying. They also apparently have a weakness, which is gingerbread. Apparently, if you just throw it towards them, they'll stop what they're doing to consume that. Now, if you've seen the movie, you do know there are hundreds of these naked elves running around. When watching this, I'm just really hoping that these actors got to do this on like a sound stage and not actually out in the snow because, woohoo! No thank you. Now, the last creature I of course have to mention is Santa Claus himself. I don't know if they're specifically just going with Santa or if they're kind of just blending him together with Krampus because, he's got the big giant horn. He's also apparently holding a giant switch so that he can beat the children once he's freed from the ice. Other than the lore that Pitari learns in some random books, we don't really get to know much more about this version of Santa. So I hope you enjoyed my review of rare exports, and if you'd like to see what everyone else in the group did for theirs, just look up the hashtag Creature Madness.